like I practice so I can be more of service. I can be more efficient, more present for the people in my lives, more caring with the people that are there. So I can, when I need to respond and act, I can do so more efficiently and more effectively. I really think that practice, you need a period where you're kind of working on yourself to be able to do that. Because in the middle of the hurly-burly, you're only almost ever just in reaction and reactivity. So your most skillful responses are not coming out. And a lot of teachers would say you're actually often making things worse because you're bringing your own violence, your own fierce anger and convictions, your own attachments to the way in which you're trying to solve a problem. And it's actually creating all this friction and more reactivity in other people, and it could be making things worse. Whereas if you have 20 minutes a day or half an hour a day or an hour a day to do a meditation practice where you're working on being more sane and compassionate, then you can be much more effective out in the world. And I mean, that's the traditional movement within world spirituality, is always this idea of a withdrawal and return. That you withdraw to work on yourself so you're better able to return and be more effective in that compassionate response. And that's kind of the classic movement of those sages and saints. It's that back and forth description. If you only ever give yourself out there, I mean, I see it all the time with caregivers, with activists, you burn out, and all of a sudden now you're no good to anybody. Whereas if you just took a little bit of time for yourself, then you would be potentially that much more effective. But guess what else? You also deserve the compassion. You also deserve the peace. If you don't give yourself that kindness and that care, how are you going to be able to really end up giving it to other people? You're going to get to the bottom of your reservoir. So hopefully that's a decent answer. Yeah, and there's a wonderful essay about this that Thomas Merton wrote in the 60s. It's like something like Activism in a Time of Crisis or something, and it's all about what meditation or what a contemplative practice has to offer activists. Because he was living in the time when there was huge change, and he was very interested in all the social justice movements of his day. And that's also why you see within traditions, there's so much I could say about this. There's an entire book actually called Mysticism, which is a brilliant book written in the 1920s by a woman named Evelyn Underhill. And it's all about, it basically challenged the kind of beliefs of the day, which were that mystics were kind of checking out, that most of these great mystics and saints, a lot of them were amazing change makers. They were deep activists, and they depended on their practice to make that happen. And actually, some of the most effective activists of all have had that foundation. And she really kind of puts it together in a 1920s language, but it's a good book. Yeah, but it's a great question, And so that's what we try to do at CEC. We work on practices that are about working on ourselves, that are about trying to be more present, but we're also interested in understanding how people want to give back and what that looks like and how we can support each other in those endeavors too. But I think the other thing just to say about this is, I used to get really down on myself because I'm not, at the food station in Africa, because that's what my dad did and that's what my mom did. It's like, we each give back in the way we can give back based on our circumstances and who we are and where we are. So the service is a very deep and multi-level thing. Caring for the world is a very deep and multi-layered thing. Some people are going to be doing it in a very obvious way. They're the heroic caregivers and the social justice activists and the reformers. But other people, it's through their relationships with their family, and like being that presence in their family or in some other mode. And so I think that you have to really, there's so much suffering that can happen when you're judging yourself by these ideals or standards. But the form in which you can be most present in your life and most caring for people around you might look quite a bit different. So looking at your life through that lens, that's important, because otherwise you're just going to create a lot of suffering for yourself. And when you create suffering for yourself, you create it for people around you, because we're all interconnected. That's the other punchline. It's like, that's it. Everybody, if someone's in a bad mood, then they can often spread that bad mood around. I mean, we know that. So it's, yeah.